So, hi Ashwin, how are you?
Hey, hi Kamal. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
All good, all good. First of all, thank you for joining this call. And Ashwin, you are based in Bangalore, right?
Yeah, based in Bangalore.
Okay. So you have been working with the sustainability for a while by now. What I could understand based on your profile and what I have seen. How did this happen? What, if you could just quickly help us understand your transition or your journey towards the sustainability? Because what you are doing is a real on-ground transition rather. Because what we most of us do is a rather is focus more on the gyan, but what you are doing is rather bringing a rather direct change in the society at a large.
Kamal, so basically, I am an engineer by profession. I work at Intel. So this is not my
Oh,
full. So yeah, I try to juggle, manage time to do this as well during my free time. So most of the volunteer work that I usually do for waste management and for sustainability is on the weekends. So
okay.
as a practitioner, obviously I do it day in and day out, so I do it myself. I practice it, and only then I preach or try to create awareness about it. But most of the events and the ground reality work that I do is juggling in between my actual profession that I have, and yeah, during my free time during weekends. So from my hometown is basically in Coimbatore, so I have a nice decent small garden back home that I
Okay.
usually. And once I moved to Bangalore for my work, it was not well taken off, and I didn't have so many plans. But thanks, fortunately or unfortunately, to the COVID time, I was doing work from home back then. So that 2 years was at home, and I was able to manage and focus on more on my hobby, which is obviously gardening. So back then, during the COVID time frame, is when I used to spend some of my free time to do a lot of gardening work. I used to buy a lot of plants. I was crazy about buying new plants and buying fertilizers, taking care of them, maintaining them at home as well. Be it ornamental plants or even food related plants as well. So that is what was there in my genes by default. So during this COVID time was the first time I even installed and started using Instagram. So as also as a hobby, we actually wanted to showcase the cooking that we are basically a background is Konkani. So we wanted to revive the lost recipes from the Konkani culture and the Konkani cuisines. And Pak Siddhi was actually one profile that we created on Instagram with the first goal to share some of those recipes, the traditional Konkani dishes and the recipes. So Pak means excellence, and I mean Siddhi means excellence, and Paka in Sanskrit means cooking. So basically, it started, and as you know, both cooking, the food, and growing food, plants, gardening. Eventually, it's a circle of life, and all these are connected. So I sort
Okay.
of developing that intent after I started this profile. And during that time, I was lucky enough to actually come across a profile of my key role model and mentor, which is Vani Murthy. So her
Okay.
Instagram, Rani. So she's my mentor, and I draw a lot of motivation, energy, and a lot of learning from her. Thanks to her, that's when I started to know about more about sustainability and how to basically incorporate and lead a better low waste and sustainable lifestyle. So that is typically when I started this journey back home during the COVID time frame. And so since I used to always invest a lot of money in buying new plants, in buying new fertilizers, eventually these are all chemical based fertilizers, and I was paying money for that. So this that is something that triggered me, or it clicked in me, that okay, if I am going to do composting at home, then I save a lot of money from buying these fertilizers, as well as I am not feeding in chemical fertilizers for my plants. I can generate organic manure right at my home and feed it back to my plants, and that is basically kind of a circle of life, that whatever food or waste that gets generated from the soil, it goes back to the soil to where it belongs. So that is how my journey kind of started, as my passion for nature and gardening. And I saw that these were all interlinked, and we play a key role in kind of implementing these, creating awareness for those who do not know about this, and start practicing these in life. And eventually, how these small steps play a bigger role as a community or as a country towards the climate change is what I started getting the bigger picture as to why these things are very important for each one of us to start practicing at home, so that it not only benefits you as an individual but also benefits back to our community as well. So that's how I moved on from that journey of publishing the recipes back to creating a lot of content on sustainability on my Instagram handle.
Beautiful. Stories from the kitchen to the compositions. So, Ashwin, I have actually gone through a couple of your training sessions. We talk a lot about the bioenzymes. What it is, if you could just explain in a very simple terms, if I have to ask you.
Yeah, sure. So just like how compost is a natural fertilizer that we can generate at home, that we can make at home, bioenzyme is a natural cleaner. It is, I would say, it is a purpose liquid that all of us can make at home. It is very simple, very straightforward, and there is no rocket science in it. So it happens naturally by fermenting either the waste that we generate. So instead of making this solid manure, you can also create this liquid manure from waste, which is called as bioenzyme, through a simple fermentation process. So when I say broadly, when we say waste, more of the peels that I would like to highlight here is the fruit peels that we generate a lot, right? So starting from citrus peels to watermelon rinds to pineapple, grapes, whatever left out fruits that you have. So these are basically the fruit peels we generally discard. We do not eat it. We either throw it in the bin and it gets mixed along with other waste and just goes in the trash. So instead of that, there is this beautiful process by which we can hold back those peels and make a more natural, organic liquid or a liquid gold. I would say, just like compost is called black gold, we generally call bioenzyme as liquid gold. So it's something that we generate from the trash, but it serves multi. It is a multi-purpose, versatile cleaner come liquid is what I would like to say that we generate from these fruit peels.
And that liquid can be used for washing purpose, you mean to say?
Yeah. So it can be, like I said, it's since it's very versatile, it has multiple purposes, and even the research is still ongoing to what extent these liquids, these bioenzymes can be used for. So the primary use of this is the as a cleaner. So instead of using the harsh chemical-based cleaners at home, it could be anything. I wouldn't like to name any specific brand, but all the harsh chemicals that we use, chemical based cleaners that we use to even mop floors or wash your, or for your laundry or for cleaning your toilets or your kitchen sink. There are multiple places where cleaners play an important role for in our lives and our households, right? So all these can be replaced by one single magic liquid, which is called as bioenzyme. So it can be used as, it can be used as an insecticide, it can be even used as a liquid fertilizer or pesticide for your plants. So that's the reason I would it no it tops everything, and that's why it is called versatile or multi-purpose liquid.
And that is something can be done at home itself, you mean to say.
Yeah, that's right.
But there is it something that you do it manually, or there is some dedicated process through which the entire I should say is it peel, I mean to say peel of any vegetables or the fruits you are referring,
Yeah,
or
so
something specific.
this can apparently also be used to make bioenzymes, but the best part is to use the fruit peels because it gives a nice natural fruity fragrance to it, the end product. And it can be used as a cleaner or pesticide, like I mentioned. And the process is very simple. I have posted that the reels of this. It is available in YouTube and Google as well. And I have also posted a lot of reels in how I make these bioenzymes, what different types of bioenzymes can be made. But like I said in the beginning, it's just a simple fermentation process. We don't have much of a manual labor or work that or efforts that we need to put in there. So once you do the process using these fruit peels, then again it's all the microorganisms and the nature takes care of it, like how your curd is being prepared, right, from milk. You don't manual effort there. So you just have the milk and then it gets converted to curd through fermentation process. your dosa batter. That is also a very good example where good bacteria plays a key role in, like the normal batter that you grind out of urad and rice. You cannot have it directly; it tastes a bit raw. So you need that good amount of bacteria that is required that can convert this into a fermented batter, which tastes good and also is good for your gut health as well. So that's why these microorganisms or good bacteria plays the key role. That's the key guy who does most of this effort, and not us.
Okay. Okay. So how was your transition? Do you care to share any of such anecdote where you felt, because I have gone through a lot of your posts and then have gone through some of the YouTube videos as well. Needless to say, it's inspiring, but at the same time, in the entire journey of it, have you felt such a need where you some of the anecdote or the story that has actually made a real impact apart from what you are trying to do in your own house?
Yeah. So, everything, all this started from trash eventually, right? So the waste that we generate, how that is linked to climate change and how it impacts the other
Yes.
species of this planet. Probably that was a driving factor for me, I would say, because even the main role here is the landfill. So a visit to one of the landfill outside my city was an eye opener for me. The amount of waste that we generate as a community, as a city, or as a country, or in throughout the world, right? So that is huge, because once the waste leaves our home, we are not bothered about it. What happens to it? Your house is clean, the waste leaves your home, and you are free of it. But eventually, if you get to know where this waste eventually ends up in a landfill, and how it impacts the people staying around it, how it again comes back to you in some form or the other, affecting your climate as well as your microclimate, and has a direct impact on the health, then that is definitely a factor that each one of us should think about and understand what happens to the waste that all of us generate. So, that is a typical example, a driving factor for me to basically understand how we can reduce our consumption, reduce our waste, or what are the other alternatives where you can convert your waste into other useful products like compost or bioenzymes.
So my question to you is specific when the reason I asked because you talk about any major city, whether you talk about Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, I guess more than 50% of population is staying in a rental place. And these places may not allow you such a leverage with respect to the lot to do, whether in terms of composite, bioenzymes, and so on and so forth. The reason I asked because I wanted to understand if I have to talk it from somebody who stay on a rented office, or who somebody wants to initiate at a very basic level, what are some of the best practices that one may leverage to lead a sustainable lifestyle? So one of the factors that you have anytime highlighted is the bioenzyme. But the bioenzyme, the factor I wanted to highlight because the moment I start doing it in my home, there are a lot of mosquitoes and then insects start coming in and around in the house. And was the reason why I was asking this question.
Okay, so I'll break that question into several answers then. Time happens in a closed loop environment. So we use bottles where we preserve these citrus peels along with jaggery and water, and let it undergo the manual fermentation process. And those bottles are actually sealed. We do not let it open. So there is no chance that it can attract any insect or any mosquito. You keep it in a dark, shady place, let nature do its job, leave it for 30 to 45 days, let the fermentation kick in and give you this nice, beautiful liquid gold. So there is no chance that it would definitely attract mosquitoes. In fact, I would say it will repel insects. So it is so strong, fragrant, that it would definitely repel insects, because one of the major use case of bioenzyme is as a pesticide, and also it can be used as a room. So it would evade the insects like mosquitoes, cockroaches, or even many people complain or would assume that it would attract ants. But that's not the case, because it is fully fermented, that you don't have any peels or jaggery left over once the process is done completely. So once it is clean enough, then it moves into a very nice citrusy, strong, fragrant format, which would actually repel insects. So it would definitely not attract it. So when you say compost, again, compost, there are a lot of, in general, there are a lot of, there is a fear factor associated with compost that once you hold back the waste at home, it would affect, it would attract a lot of ants, insects, rodents, and all, right? So that is definitely a genuine concern, because once you have not started doing it, you would not understand what happens behind it, or how you can take preventive action to basically stop this from infesting your home, right? So there are different techniques that happens in this closed room, or I would say in this closed environment, which would definitely not attract anything. We as sustainability practitioners have been composting. For me, I would say it's a short journey. I'm not again a master of it, so I have been doing personally for the last 3 years or so. But there are people who have been doing this for almost like decade, for 10 years. So if their home has not been invaded by rats, cockroaches, mosquitoes, by now I think they would have stopped doing and given up and not continued for this long. So that itself, we have live examples in our sustainability community, sustainability influencers that are available on our social media like Instagram, from which you can derive the energy and confidence and say that no, it would not happen. So if you take preventive actions, like I said, bioenzymes first of all would not attract. Compost, usually the composter or the compost bin that we use again has to be closed. It should not be left open. So apart from that, minute organisms, and maybe as we delve more in depth about this topic, I can talk about it. So the minute organisms like earthworms or even maggots, these are actually common and are required in the compost system. So they are not our enemies actually. So I would say they are our friends and not foes. So yeah, so basically the compost may have small microorganisms, and it might have even small insects like maggots and earthworms. So these are actually part of the ecosystem. So one factor is acceptance, the mind, the way it influences our mind, the perception of what compost is. So that should actually change. So only if we have a change in the way we mindfully think about what a compost is and try to think more about it, its advantages, and then we would lose this fear factor of actually attracting more rodents or cockroaches or whatever insects it may be. But there are certain essential organisms like maggots or even earthworms which are part of the ecosystem, which help in basically eating up your trash. They are our friends and not foes. So they eat up our trash and they poop, and that's basically an organic manure that has to be go back into the soil, and the plants absorb these nutrients easily, organically, without adding or without the need of any chemical fertilizers. So I think there is a mind map change required, and the more people will start practicing, there are people whom they can watch and learn and understand how to take these preventive actions at home to prevent these insects from entering this system.
So one of the major factors that whenever it comes to the sustainability altogether, the major crux, if I'm not mistaken, with respect to is the landfill. And the one of the major factor that drives the landfill is the plastic. Plastic plays a very crucial role with respect to you name it, and then plastics may be one of the factor that's deriving it rather, or is a one of the driving factor. What would be your point of suggestion? Because no matter how much ever I try to reduce my plastic consumption, wherever I go, the best I do, I can carry something. Or even if I get anything for that matter, as in Zepto or a big basket, you name it, and then everything almost comes to the plastic bag. What would be your piece of suggestion if I, as an individual, wants to reduce the consumption of plastic or wants to decrease as in terms of overall plastic usage?
So you're, yeah, definitely right. Plastic, single-use plastic. I would like to emphasize on that word, because many people think plastic is our enemy. So if you go back and think why it was created, it was basically for convenience. It was durable, it lasted long, it is lightweighted, it is easy to convince. So definitely, I'm not here to talk about the advantages of plastic. I would like to highlight the disadvantages, but we need to understand the history why this began in the first place, right? So once plastic took the evil form of becoming single use plastic, that's when it started becoming a threat to our environment as well as to our health. So nowadays, in all the medical reports, it is evident from a mother's womb to the blood, the human blood. So everywhere there is this concept called microplastic. So until science has not revealed it, we thought, okay, we will consume more and more, we'll buy more plastic because it is convenient to us. So that is the key culprit, I would say. Convenience is the culprit because, like you mentioned, all the online orders, Zepto orders. So again, that is a convenience factor, right? Everything happens with a click of a button using our phone. But was it the case during our ancestors or during our grandparents' time? No, right? So I'm not saying to go back to the Stone Age or you live back in that era, but there is something that all of us should carry forward to the future generations as well, and not just discard the fact that what our ancestors were doing in the past. So they used to carry a bag or a jhola with them, and they used to go walk or go to the nearby market and try to buy things in that bag themselves. So there is one cutting edge factor where you reduce a huge number of plastic on a weekly basis by buying your vegetables in your own bag, right? Similarly, there is something before we go too deep into it. I would like to say definitely there is nothing called as zero waste. It's not possible. As long as we humans exist, as long as whatever is available in the community for us to survive, we need to buy, we need to consume. So we cannot go zero waste for sure. But there is something that we can do to convert our lifestyle into a more low waste living. So, first, we identify the problem. We know that single use plastic is a threat. Second, what is the solution? First is basically to refuse. So, I think in the earlier podcast, also, you would have heard about sustainability has the key three R's of sustainability, and the R is now growing to a huge list now. So the three R's, or the main ones, were the rulers of sustainability were basically to refuse, and then to reduce, and then to reuse. So most of the plastic containers, for example, you buy something, you buy ghee or you buy mustard or whatever it is, the container, if you buy in bulk, we used to reuse those containers. So our grandparents' time, if you remember, the container label will be something, but if you open it, there'll be something else inside. So that's because we used to reuse those containers. We never used to have this use and throw, discard within a day or within an hour, or we never used to have this kind of a single use policy or a trend during the earlier time frames. Plastic was there from a very long time, not that it just emerged somewhere out of the last couple of years. So if we remember these three key terms of basically refusing single use plastic, basically reducing our consumption, and then reusing what we already have. Because most of the time I see that uh, people say that, okay, Amazon is bad, Zepto, whatever you named, all those are bad. So they quickly start throwing away all the plastic that they have at home, and they start investing a lot in buying these eco-friendly products. That's not what sustainability is. It's not you throw whatever you have at your home and you start buying something new. That is not sustainability. Use something that you already have is the best sustainable practice that one. I think the all the influencers, sustainability practitioners and influencers would agree to me, and they would also preach this. Reuse what you have till the end of life is the first policy, because it has been manufactured. You have purchased it. So instead of discarding it, why can't you use it till the end of life and then let it go to the next stage of whatever it is possible, like for example recycle. So if you maintain the dry waste properly and clean, then there is still a possibility that post your use you still send it further to the next step of sustainability, which is basically recycling. So even before you go to that stage, do not ever forget the two factors of refuse and reduce. For example, the simple Bisleri bottles, that is the baby step that each and every one of us can take by refusing that mineral water bottle. Because it's eventually like you're paying for water, you're paying for the bottle as well. Okay, it has been manufactured for that purpose. So you're feeding and pumping in more money for more plastics to get generated from fossil fuel. So you're creating something that will not get degraded, or which will be in the on this planet even after you are gone. So is that really worth it? Is there really worth to buy something that will remain for like thousands of years and affect the future generations and the earth and degrade your resources? Definitely not. I think it's a viable option. And the second one is basically to reduce. So there are options, like I said, if you want to buy five things in five plastic bags, there is definitely a way. If you think, just pause and think for a minute, you can buy all those five items in one bag, be it plastic as well. Carry a plastic bag which you already have at home, which you have got through Amazon, Zepto, or XYZ. You can carry that one with you instead of going to the shop and getting another plastic bag from him. So it's again, it's like an endless toxic circle where they are manufacturing, we are consuming, we are taking in more and more, and again we are dumping it. It goes to the landfill, but it's not a closed loop there. So far, what I talked about, the good news is all about composting, letting it back to the soil, bioenzymes. So it is a circular system. It's a circular economy where you close the loop. But once you get into this vicious circle of consumption, you leave the circle open. So it's an open loop where you start consuming mindlessly, and basically there is no end to this. So you keep blaming each other. So many people have seen that they blame that, okay, they manufacture it, they deliver in it. It's not my problem. I'm not. I'm supposed to be guilty, or not supposed to be blamed for it because I'm not manufacturing it. But we are consuming it. We, as consumers, definitely we have the power to decide what we want, what we buy, and how much we consume. So that factor has to be inculcated in each and every one of us when we think about buying new things.
I guess the crux of the entire story, what it looks like, becoming conscious about it, what makes a major difference before even you think about making it. And what I love about the entire conversation so far, what you have mentioned, there's no concept as a zero wastage or zero plastic or zero garbage sort of factor. Because the best we can do, we can reduce to an extent, but we cannot say that it's a zero as a zero. What I actually wanted to follow, I have a question on the policy front. That you touched upon on a pointer on the policy front. So I understand when it comes to the Bangalore as a city, the government is trying to do something with respect to the segregation with respect to the wet and the dry waste. But given a chance, if have to say that uh, policy framework when it comes to the daily living, or if it comes from a mandate from the government, what are the things that you think ideally should be as it has to be make it a mandate from the government that each citizen has to do? Because one initiative, what I love the factor about the segregation of the wastage, but that is only related to the wastage, but that also comes under a lot of what I said. It comes with its own flaws. So when it comes to the policy framing, do you think that government can plays? Of course, government can play a significant role, but what are the factors that government where the government can play a significant role?
So we know that there is a problem in us adopting, even if there is a law, right? Even be it a traffic rule, there is a traffic rule. You should not cross the road when there is a red signal, but still some people do it. So there are laws in place. There is government has put the policy. Even like you said, in Karnataka and Bengaluru, there is a court mandated rule that we should segregate waste. And even locally within the, I would say the panchayat or within the colony, there are strict rules where some of these authorities, they are strict enough that even if you mix the waste, they would not take your waste. So what would you do with it? So then you end up having the waste back at your home, right? So if you do that simple step at home, then you are following the law, and then you abide by the law and also make the system go smoothly. But that's not the case with this huge population that we have. uh, it gets diluted at some point. So I think individual effort is equally important along with what the government mandates, because these rules are already there. Even for plastic, there are several grades and types of plastic, like the thin cling films, the cling wraps, and all those kind of low quality plastic. Those are already banned in Karnataka. And in some of the department, the bigger shops, you see, they are being replaced by brown covers. They are being replaced by compostable bags. So if something goes away, it gets replaced by something. So you do not get a perfect solution in this whole scheme of things. That's the problem. So it doesn't mean that I wait until the end for a mandated government or a strict fees, that fine that gets levied on me. Till then I'll do whatever I want. Then this is a never ending game, right? So government will change, the policies will change, people will change, the mentality will change, and eventually it gets kind of diluted, right? So there is something that as an individual, if we are conscious and we take the decision ourselves, I think that has more power to it, and that kind of supports the policies that exists. So it means that each one of us should follow the policy, adhere to it strictly, and also create awareness on it. So, for example, I also used to volunteer in the Banshankri temple along with SWMRT team. So we used to kind of educate people who bring in a lot of plastic, be the puja items or even small bags containing the flowers. So those are all banned. Right outside the temple, you can see vendors actually selling it. So as soon as they enter, out of 10 people, I would say 6 to 7 would listen to us, would not bring the plastic cover. They would dump it in the blue bins, which is basically the dry waste bin, which goes for recycling. And the rest 2 to 3 people, they would argue with us. So again, it's a mindset change. If you always go in that what to say, the defending mode or the argument mode, then this would never happen. You just keep blaming each other. Like I mentioned, even the manufacturer will keep manufacturing because that's what they are meant for. These Bisleri bottles, that is their business. But if I stop taking it, if I carry my own bottle by drinking water or by refilling water, there are several stations. So this is just one basic thing I'm just quoting as an example here, because that you are fueling it, right? You know that it is not happening, you know that they are being manufactured, but you are giving them more power by buying it. So as consumers, again, I would say, as waste generators, I would say that we have the power, we have the understanding and the awareness. You spread the word so that people who are not aware are know about it. But if 7 to 8 out of 10 people start following it, then I would consider that as a success measure. Converting all 10 people might not be in my control. So what is there in our control is what we can actually talk about and implement and create awareness and motivate people, so that you grow your tribe and make that 8 to 10 eventually in the journey.
So the reason I ask this question, because I understand that, uh, as you said it rightly, the policies are there to an extent, and that too, if I'm not mistaken, is largely restricted to the southern part of the state, such as Karnataka and to an extent Tamil Nadu and Kerala. But the moment you come at the upper north or the upper part of the India, there is not such regulation that drives such initiative. So what I understood from the entire discussion is it has to be begin from the is an individual initiative, and that's how it goes. But at the same time, do you also, I mean, since you yourself has been not only advocating, the reason I am keeping on that because you also work as a trainer for this entire initiative. Do you also consider to give such training into the schools and then all those building blocks rather, I'll say, because those are the, as I said, as I use the words as the building blocks, because once the kids has been taught or maybe something has been forced to practice it, that remains in there for a very long period of time.
Yes. So, like I mentioned, I am an individual sustainability practitioner. I do it out of my own passion, but I do volunteer with organizations like SWMRT. So, SWMRT is management roundtable based in Bangalore. So, I do volunteer with them. There are several organizations in different parts of our country which are doing equally good job in their own space, in their own cities and states. So, what we typically do as a volunteer with SWMRT, what we typically also do is we tie up with corporates, institutions like schools and colleges as well, and we give them sessions and trainings on waste management, on composting, and how to live a more low waste lifestyle and sustainability. So there are workshops and sessions being conducted with them in association with in collaboration with such institutions and corporates, to spread this word of sustainability in a more concrete way. Coming to the schools, definitely as a personal thought, I would say that is definitely needed, because that is the future. The kids, the mentality and how they can be molded is, we have to catch them at the right age. And as they teach the actual academics at schools, sustainability also should become a part of their curriculum, either as a full time or as a subject or as an elective, or at least as such workshops and sessions as a part of their projects. And I believe I am seeing a lot of positive change, especially in the city where I live, where a lot of such institutions, colleges even come forward as their summer projects, and they tie up with the organizations like SWMRT to come and learn theoretically, as well as to even do a hands-on session as a part of their projects. So we have a very good initiative here in Bangalore called as Swachagraha Kalika Kendra. It is a unit of the SWMRT, and that is in HSR Layout, Bangalore. So that is an experiential learning center where we actually teach about composting live. So we show how the waste is actually being converted into black gold, how the bioenzymes are made, and we have a lot of content and material that we actually encourage students, kids, to actually learn and practice hands-on live at this experiential learning center. So it's not only we go to these corporates and institutions and go and teach them, but we also call them back to our center so that they can have a live tour of this Kalika Kendra that we have in Bangalore, so that they get the live experience of it, the live feel of it, and they can go back home and even learn, practice themselves. So yeah, definitely this has to be a part of the education system, and we are as volunteers are also contributing to make sure that this word is being spread across schools and colleges as well.
Yes. A very personal question. Have you ever been objectified for choosing something where your hand get dirty, whether by the friends, whether with the family, and so on so forth?
Definitely. So criticism is always there, right? And people do get trolled everywhere, especially when you are on a social media. You get trolled. So so that is very common. So it depends how you want to take it. So I would always again go back to that, the 8 out of 10, right? So even if it is 5 out of 10, given my the experience that I have, or the growth rate that I have, even if it is 3 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 also, I am happy with it. I try to derive the happiness, the encouragement and the motivation from those 3 to 5 people whom I have been able to convert, learn, and for them to go and implement it. The rest, 2 to 3, would always be there, would always
Yes.
calling or for criticism. So it happens, right? So even I would give a simple example. So when I started this composting journey, there is a slight misconception about that composting stinks. It is basically people who don't know what composting is. Even at home, I got the objection that I shouldn't be doing this when I started this journey, because I failed tremendously when I first started composting. It started stinking because I was adding more wet waste, and the my at home they were very apprehensive, because our neighbors would again come and fight, right? Because 8 houses are giving the wet waste to the waste truck that comes daily, but we are holding it back and doing something at home, which they are not aware of. So again, there is a kind of that fear factor, or that apprehension that comes when you start doing something new. But until you do it, you prove it to them, there will always be people who are there. And even if you have proved, there is again this 5 to 10% of people who would still troll you. That is their entertainment. They gain happiness out of it, but I gain happiness out of my 5 to 8 people out of 10 whom I have influenced, and I'm able to motivate to start this composting journey and lead a sustainable lifestyle. So yeah, I've learned this over the past 3 years, I would say. So even I used to get a lot of demotivation seeing that smaller group of people, but now I've learned to go to the other side and get my strength from them.
So, a last question with respect to any aspirational project that you would like to pursue or you would like to see that.
Um, I would say community composting is my aspiration. So I was able to convert people at my home. I was able to at least influence my some of my relatives to start composting at home. But community composting, where I stay in a larger society where there are like 180 people in an apartment, So that is a huge waste generation source, right? It is not just my home, but 180 other people whom I can typically try to influence and slowly change. So by tying up with such associations and the association of your society, slowly if you start influencing, you are moving from a single individual person to a community, right? So I am able to go to a place, deliver a session, and I am able to make them understand. But I'm not able to go there and track whether they are actually implementing it or not. So the next level of success criteria or aspiration for me would be my own community or a larger group of people staying around me. If I'm able to make them compost at home, make them more sustainable, make them even practice low waste celebrations. Because every day in and day out, you see a lot of events happening, a lot of celebrations happening, which is again good. But it generates huge amount of waste which you would have generated even for 1 month. It happens in a day for that event. So that again is a huge contributor to plastic pollution and to degrade, which ends up in landfill and affects Mother Earth. So having an influence over a wider audience and able to do a community level sustainability practice to my scope would definitely be my next level of success criteria or aspiration, is what I would say.
Do you get any support from the local government? Because you reside in Bangalore, as you said, and you are part of the SWMRB. That's what you mentioned, right? So,
Yes.
do you get any support from the government, local government, or I said, say, BBMP as such?
Yeah. So from I would speak from my perspective first. As an individual, like I said, support required is waste segregation, which is already happening, and I'm happy with it. And I try to hold back most of my wet waste by composting at home. But coming to the Swachhagraha Kalika Kendra, the learning center, that we definitely get support from the local citizen forum, the citizen movement, as well as from the local BBMP as well. So even there is a very good example of a community in HSR layout where people do community composting already with the help of BBMP. So it has gone to an extent where there is a huge mesh or community composter for every layout or colony. And instead of the wet waste that comes from a group of homes, that gets composted in that community composter within that colony itself. So they are holding back the waste there, and whatever compost gets generated within that locality is fed back to the trees and the plants that gets generated there, or the semi composted material you can even come and drop by in Swachhagraha Kalika Kendra, where we would take care of the rest of the process to make sure the black gold gets generated, and even that gets sold to at a low rate to farmers as well, which would eventually where your food gets grown, right? So it helps you to eventually move from a chemical based system, from a monoculture to more of a permaculture and organic farming, where you use the black gold or the compost that we generate to grow your own food. So you can actually see the closed loop which helps happen there. So yes, it is happening in certain areas where this implementation has been taken. And like I mentioned, the Banshankari temple initiative by SWMRT also, that happens with the support of the local authorities there. So definitely, the work that happens is a combined effort of both the local authorities and the citizen movement, hand in hand, which will actually make any such initiative or project a great success.
Perfect, Ashwin. This was new to me with respect to the way you are trying to take it forward. And as you rightly mentioned, that I guess it all starts with the conscious choice. No matter how, whatever policy, whatever the government initiative, whatever training one may do, until unless there is no conscious choices, one will not be able to move it. So thank you so much for those insights.
Nearby landfill for anyone, one visit to a nearby landfill, I think that would again be a huge eye opener, because you just see a small dustbin of waste at your home, but once you go and see the tons of waste that gets dumped in a landfill, and all this climate change eventually, right? Because the landfill basically generates methane, which emits into the atmosphere, and also it leaches the toxic liquid as well as gases as well. So it is polluting your neighboring water bodies, the soil, and it affects the people. Eventually, the people who are even staying around the landfills, they are the first people who gets affected. You might be staying kilometers away from it and you don't care about it, but think about the health and the sanitation of those people who are living around the landfill. So that would definitely be a driving factor, or I would say give you that level of empathy to associate yourself with the people suffering from various diseases staying around the landfill. So it has definitely an environment as well as a detrimental impact on individual and a community health as well.
This actually reminds me one of my experience. I was just crossing by the cab, and then both sides were the lakes, not lakes, rather the canal were there, and it was surprisingly filled with all the what do you call it, the foam. It was stinking like freak. I was not expecting this to happen that too early morning. I was surprised where does this snowfall is happening, but it was stinking like freak, and then I realized this what it is actually. So that was one of the, and that actually happened in Bangalore itself, somewhere towards the Kerala and what I was passing by. So that's a reality, and it has reached over here. So good, Ashwin. Thank you so much for those inputs. It was certain good talking to you and knowing a little more perspective of the bioenzymes and how one may go forward for it. Thank you so much for those insights.
Thanks, Kamal. Thank you for this opportunity. Glad to be a part of your podcast.